I'm Claudine Wong from KTVU, Channel 2 News. Welcome to a discussion with Floy Andrews, who is running for assessor in Contra Costa County. Gus Kramer, the current assessor, is unable to join us today. Today's discussion is sponsored by the Contra Costa County Elections Division and Contra Costa Television. We are recording this in the studios of Contra Costa Television. Ms. Andrews, thanks so much for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's really nice to be here.
So I'd like to give you a chance to introduce yourself to the voters. I know you live in Point Richmond. You've been a practicing attorney. Tell us about yourself and this campaign.
Yes, I do. I live in Point Richmond. I'm running for county assessor. I bring a wealth of professional experience and I think I have the appropriate temperament to do this job very well. I have been a lawyer for 25 years. I practiced for 15. Half of that with a real estate company. I have a master's degree in ethics from Columbia University, and I co-founded and ran a community-based startup business in the East Bay that provided for the employment of over 50 new jobs, 50 people. I'm also on the Assessment Appeals Board, and I'm excited to bring all of that professional experience to this job. It's a big job.
It is a big job, the job of the assessor, looking at all the properties, assessing values for the county and associated taxes. Talk about priorities. When you take a look at what's in front of you, if you were elected, what would be topping the priority list when you walked in the door?
One of the first things would be to create a culture of accountability and to ensure that every appraisal done in the office, a person doing the appraisal is applying the rules and regulations with accuracy, fairly, and impartially for transparency and accountability. So everybody knows that their assessment is unbiased and fair for the taxes that are based upon those assessments. That would be one. Another is I would create a zero tolerance policy for unprofessional and undignified behavior in the office. The office needs to move towards a culture of support and a safe space for all employees to come and thrive in the office and know that they will be rewarded appropriately based upon their efforts in the work. And then finally, I will be immediately looking for sort of low-hanging fruit for increasing efficiency, both for staff and for taxpayers in the office. It's my understanding other assessors have been able to obtain grant funding to increase efficiencies and modernize processes and systems in the office, and I would be looking at that right away as well.
What do you see then is the biggest challenge? And certainly you've talked about some very big projects that you'd be taking on in the office, and certainly we have a lot happening with real estate and how things are changing now and how that affects values. We know here in the Bay Area, just in general, how those can fluctuate. Biggest challenges that you think and biggest hurdles to overcome?
I think the biggest challenge is heightening the perception of the office countywide. I think that the assessor who runs an office of over 120 staff members, it's a big job, and the assessor's job is to interface with the supervisors, all 5 county supervisors, with elected officials across the county, business leaders, and community-based organizations, as well as running the department, but ensuring that everybody trusts the assessor's department to apply the rules and regulations fairly and to operate collaboratively and professionally with all of those different constituencies. I am endorsed by all 5 county supervisors, bipartisan endorsement, and that's partially because they do know I have the temperament to create a collaborative work environment.
So there is that part of it. You mentioned as well about upgrading the office. Tell me how much you think that would cost. I mean, there are logistics, and you mentioned grants and funding like that, but how you think that would change what the assessor's office does. You just talked about relationships, but this is in basic data and technology, right?
Mhm. Recently, it's my understanding that other assessors' offices have gotten grants to digitize all the files in the office. And that would be a priority for me. Working in an office where the information needed can be found, through the computer system instead of digging through filing cabinets, et cetera. So that would be one thing. Also, it's my understanding that they are relying on an outdated access database that could be upgraded for efficiencies. And it's my understanding that there's a manual data process where the assessors are assessing in one data system, and then the data has to be manually transferred to another system. And I do believe that there are products available that would allow for that data to flow smoothly through, which would heighten accuracy and also efficiency.
But at this point, we do not know cost and timing and things like that. That is something that you're just following the thread, it sounds like.
It's something pardon me, what?
Like you're just researching and looking into in terms of how much it would cost and how long that would take.
Yes, exactly. I'm not in the office yet, so I would have to sort of dive into that. But it is my understanding that within the first 2 years, other assessors have been able to move towards a digitized environment. They were able to apply for the grant, get the grant, and move towards a more digitized environment in 2 years.
You've mentioned your communications with supervisors, this internal change, an internal culture change. Can you tell me how voters will see a difference in the assessor's office if you were elected, and property owners, and what the impact to them would be?
Right. Well, the other thing that I feel is super important in terms of running a department of that size in the county is your relationship with the other department heads. And the relationship between the other department heads, I think it flows down to the whole sort of employment structure so that all of the county employees are working collaboratively together. That reduces sort of rework, and it reduces the time it takes to move a project through, and it makes for just a more positive working environment. And I think that taxpayers and the county residents will see the benefit of that in terms of their interaction with the assessor's office and their interaction, frankly, across the city. I'm sorry, across the county and the county offices.
You did make a promise on your campaign site that you will evaluate every file and every piece of property. How big is that task? It sounds huge. How do you propose to do that? How long do you think that would take?
Oh, well, that is what the assessor's office does every year. When I say I mean the office with my oversight. So the office has 120 more than 120 staff members. And every year they are valuing all of the real estate and all the business and personal property in the county. It's a big job for sure. And under sort of my supervision, every appraisal would be done fairly and impartially, applying the appropriate rules and regulations in every case.
Do you think the staffing is adequate now? Do you think there are other changes that you would do in terms of structure to get things done in maybe a more timely fashion, not a timely fashion? What are some of the other challenges that you see?
Well, since I'm not actually in my goal is to show up in that office and immediately begin assessing systems and personnel and changing culture and improving services. At this point, I can't say exactly what I will find when I arrive.
Your opponent, Gus Kramer, we mentioned, was unable to join us today, but has obviously been in that position for a very long time. Do you think that would, make the running start more of a challenge too, to go into an office that has been operating in one way for a long time as a newcomer to the office?
Well, it's true. The current assessor has been in that position for nearly 30 years. And so my expectation is I will bring, a fresh look and new energy to the department, with the expectation of finding new ways of doing things and certainly ensuring that all the property is fairly and impartially appraised.
How do you plan to reach voters? I mean, certainly these are interesting times, and the world is opening up a little bit more than than in our past few years. But how has the campaign trail been, and how are you reaching out to voters, and what are you hearing?
Well, I am endorsed by all 5 county supervisors, by elected officials across the county. I've been endorsed by the East Bay Times, the Democratic Party, the Central Labor Council, many Democratic clubs across the county, and the National Organization of Women. So many people are stepping up in support of my campaign. And I also understand that the Democratic Party is reaching out with campaign materials across the county. And then I also will be sending emails out, and we are going to many public events and fundraisers. So I feel like there are many opportunities for voters to get to know me. And I think that the process it's going great. I feel very positive about the campaign.
And in terms of where the department stands now, and how far it has to go, it sounds like there's a lot of changes that you would like to make.
I do. I think there are a lot of changes that are needed in the environment. And I feel like those changes will make a much more positive experience for everyone, including the 120 people who work in the department, as well as the departments across the county, and the taxpayers and residents of Contra Costa.
All right. Floy Andrews, I want to give you a chance now to give your 2-minute closing statement.
Thank you very much. So I'm Floy Andrews, and I'm running for county assessor. I'm running with the endorsement, the bipartisan endorsement of all 5 county supervisors, as well as elected officials across the county. The assessor is a big job. The assessor runs a department of over 120 staff members who value all of the real property and the personal and business taxable personal and business property every year. I have the professional background and the temperament to do this job. I have been an attorney for 25 years. I practiced for 15, half of that with a real estate company. I have a degree in ethics from Columbia University, and I was the CEO and co-founder of a community-based startup that provided for the employment of 50 people. That's in the East Bay. And I'm on the Assessment Appeals Board. The current assessor has been in the job for nearly 30 years, and his tenure has been rife with controversy. The East Bay Times endorsed me as well, and they wrote an editorial, and in that editorial, they list transgression after transgression committed by this current assessor against taxpayers, against his own employees, and against the county. Gus Kramer does not deserve the public trust. It's time for a change. I promise I will be your ethical assessor. I promise that every piece of property evaluated in the office when I'm in the assessor's office will be done fairly, impartially, with transparency and accountability. Please vote for me. I'm Floy Andrews for County Assessor. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Floy Andrews. We appreciate our discussion with you, and this does conclude our discussion with Floy Andrews, who is running for assessor in Contra Costa County. To view this broadcast online, go to www.cocovote.us. I'm Claudine Wong from KTVU Channel 2 News. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to vote on June 7th.